All right, welcome back, everybody. Today is January 17th, 2023, and we are going to, for our PMI ACP talk today, wanted to touch on the actual Agile life cycle, which entails the product backlog, the sprint planning meeting, the daily scrums, sprint reviews, sprint retrospectives, and yeah, how everything goes into the entire life cycle of the Agile process. So let's start off with the product backlog. So and by the way, what I am looking at, and I don't know if this is going to, hopefully it can focus on that visual map. And so the activity that I want to talk about is the product backlog. The product backlog is a prioritized list of all the work that needs to be done to build the product. It serves as the single source for all the product requirements. So, by reading that, the items in the backlog may include features to be built, functions, requirements, quality attributes, enhancements, and fixes. This list is dynamic. It evolves as the product evolves and needs to be continually updated. The items in the backlog are prioritized by the product owner and sorted so that the highest priority work is at the top of the list. Okay. The team will always try to work on these top priority items next or as soon as possible given dependencies and other factors. The work items are progressively refined as they get closer to being worked on, so the highest priority items are the most detailed and the team's estimates for those items are more precise. The lowest priority items might not get developed at all since they may be continually deferred in favor of the higher priority work. Backlog is constantly being refined, and the process of adding more detail to the backlog items and refining their estimates is the backlog refinement. Okay, so the product backlog, let's look at this from so the product backlog and the sprint backlog are part of in the waterfall world, part of the requirements gathering. So, in the waterfall world, we go through basically, we decompose and you break down tasks into subtasks. That's basically what this, and then you prioritize them. So that's what the product backlog is. And this at the very beginning of the project, based off of that life cycle project, the process. So this is all entailed into a sprint, which is 1 to 4 weeks. And so we start with the product backlog, and then we go to a sprint planning meeting. And what happens is that inside the sprint planning meeting, everyone gathers to determine what will be delivered in the upcoming sprint and how that work will be achieved. The product owner presents the updated backlog items, and the group discusses them to ensure they have a shared understanding. Development team forecasts what can be delivered. Okay, with this forecast in mind, they define the sprint goal. The development team then determines how that functionality will be built and how they will organize themselves to deliver the sprint goals. So once we go through the requirement gathering, we identify what is part of the product backlog and what the agile mindset is that we're looking for the highest value items that we can turn around real quickly. So that's the whole agile mindset. So we go through the product backlog, we go through the sprint planning meeting, and then inside this diagram, the backlog review, team discussions and estimates, definition of sprint goal, definition of done, and plan to deliver sprint goal. So all of that goes into the sprint planning meeting. And then after the sprint planning meeting, we develop the sprint backlog and plan. So let's see here. Let's see, does it have something in there? Yep, there it is. So the sprint backlog is the subset of items in the product backlog that have been selected as the goal of a specific sprint. The sprint backlog isn't a separate list from the product backlog. Along with the sprint backlog, the team develops a plan for how they will achieve the sprint goal. This is their commitment for the functionality they will deliver in the sprint. The sprint backlog serves as a highly visible view of the work being undertaken and may only be updated by the development team. So once again, you identify your project scope and you go through your decomposing to break down the major areas, and then once you identify the major areas, you put those into your project backlog that will change as the project goes through. So let's use building a house as an example. So you may have all of the rooms inside of the product backlog that you know of so far. So you could have bedroom 1, bedroom 2, kitchen, living room, bathroom. And then inside of your sprint, your first sprint may be building bedroom 1. So then you identify everything that needs to be done in the sprint for that particular build, which is bedroom 1. So you go through that, and then you start having your daily scrums. So everything has been identified. We've kicked off the sprint planning. Each a sprint is a time constraint mini project, 1 to 4 weeks, to where we identify what we want to get done. So now we're going to start having daily scrums. And for the daily scrums, the daily scrum is a 15-minute time box meeting that is held at the same time and place every day while the team is working towards the sprint goal. The scrum master makes sure the meeting happens every day and follows up on any identified obstacle. The daily scrum is primarily for the members of the development team, who use it to synchronize their work and report any issues they are facing. The scope of this meeting is strictly limited. Each member of the team briefly answers 3 questions about what they are doing to meet the sprint goal. What have I done since the last daily scrum? What do I plan to do today? And are there any impediments to my progress? So that's how the daily scrum is built into the overall process, what has been done, what will be done, and what obstacles are in the way. So as you're going through your sprint and you're going through your daily scrums, the next thing that is on the actual life cycle is the building of the product. So let's go here and let's read the actual. So we got the product increment during each sprint. Okay, so basically, during it says there are 3 tangible items that are produced or used by the team during a sprint: the product increment, the product backlog, and the sprint backlog. So the product backlog, the sprint backlog, and the product increment are all tied to the exact same feature. So like I was saying before, so you would have your bedroom 1 as the product backlog, and then inside of bedroom 1, we'll just say painting the wall is included in the first sprint session. So that would be the product increment, and then the sprint backlog will be everything else. Let's see here. The sprint instances of the product will have been selected as a goal of the specific sprint. This is the commitment for that one deliver. Okay, right. So then the sprint backlog is just everything that you're going to continue working on. So you just pull an item from the sprint, from the product backlog, and you pull it into your sprint, and then you'll have all of these items for your sprint that needs to be worked on. And when if you got 10 items, and you'll be working on 2 items, and you have the other 8 that are in the backlog. So that's how that works. So let's see here. So part of the product increment during each sprint, the members of the development team build an increment of the solutions in the product of the project. As we've seen, the sprint review. So the product increment is the or basically the product. So building out the product, especially in like technology, you'll be building individual pieces to an actual product, website, coding, new feature, new functionality, things of that nature. So when you're designing your agile process, you do the same thing. You just break it down into smaller pieces that you can work on to get through a lot quicker. And that's how you build out this whole life cycle. So while you're doing the product, you're also going to want to have what are called sprint reviews. So in sprint reviews, the sprint review meeting is held at the end of each sprint and includes the development team, the product owner, and the scrum master, and potentially other stakeholders. In this meeting, the team demos the increment or evolving product that they built in the sprint to the product owner. The product owner inspects the work to see whether it is acceptable, deciding if it is done, or explaining what is missing. So inside your sprint review is where demo work is for the demonstrate it and show to the stakeholder. So that is part of the overall process. And then you go into your final act, which is the sprint. So inside of your sprint review, you inspect the product, you're adjusting the backlog, and your demonstrating work is done. So that's what the sprint review does. So you go from product backlog to identifying your sprint. You go through your sprint backlog and plan what's going to be inside the sprint. You have your daily scrums as you're working through your sprint, which is the number of items that you're accomplishing, and building the product. And then as we're finishing up and going through the sprint, once we get through all of that, and we've actually, like I said in our example, we've built the wall, we've painted the wall, we've built the bedroom, we've put up the walls, put in the carpet, put in the lighting, make sure everything's worked. Then we review with the stakeholder and get their approval on every day that is done. And then we end the process with what is called the sprint retrospective. And the sprint retrospective is basically your lessons learned. After the sprint review, but before the next sprint planning meeting, development team holds their final inspect and adapt activity for the sprint retrospective. And this is where you pull everybody together, you discuss your positives, your negatives, anything that you can build off of, and how you can take those lessons learned into your next sprint as you're still continuously building out the project. So, once again, the main compartments is that you got to go through your requirement decomposing of your idea, your vision, and then you're going to build out and you're going to generate your product backlog. And then inside of your product backlog, once you have that identified, the key pieces to making the project, then you're going to start having your sprint planning meetings where you're going to work and identify the highest prioritized items. You're going to work on those to get those completed, which is done through the sprint backlog and planning. And then you start having your daily scrums where your team meets and you discuss what is being done to get all of the items on that sprint backlog completed for that product. And then you continue to build out the product. Once the product is at everything has been done to it, you meet with the stakeholders and they give you the thumbs up. You go through your sprint review. You identify that everything that they was looking for, like I said, they sign off on it. And then the final thing is your sprint retrospective. And this is where you reflect on the process, identify potential improvement, and focus on people, relationships, process, and tools. So this, and then you just restart the process over again. So let's take a look here. I think I hit on everything. The product backlog, the product increment. So yeah, you do your product backlog first. So yeah, the product is a prioritized the work that needs to be done to build the product. It serves as the single source for all product requirements. And then your product increment during each sprint. Remember to build an increment of the solution, which is the decomposing. The backlog is continuously refined of adding more detail to the backlog items and refining our estimates. And then the sprint backlog is a subset of the product backlog that have been selected as a goal. So yeah, so once you identify which items are going to be in your sprint, you just work on them. Like I said, you go through your sprint review where you demonstrate it to the stakeholders. You end it with your lessons learned, and then you start the process all over. Christmas. Alrighty, so that's going to be, that was very, very helpful to me. And like I said, that was just an area that so that was very helpful to me. That was just an area that I had been needed to just really focus on and get a better understanding of as I continue to develop my knowledge of the Agile process. So I don't. What I'm probably gonna do next time, since that was a key area that I wanted to really dive into, is that I will go through here, and next time we're going to tackle the task, the Kanban board, and working process. So my next video will be dedicated to tasks, the task board, the Kanban task / Kanban board, and the working process limit, and how they all move along that bar, well, along that board. So as always, thanks if you're finding this video and you're watching it. Appreciate you watching. Please, if you have anything to say, feel free to leave any comment. Other than that, thanks again, and hopefully I should have the next video up and going probably within about 2 to 3 days. Other than that, thanks a lot.